This is the time of the year when I'm really putting up food. Our garden is just coming in like crazy. What's on my agenda today is to make a run of dilled beans. I learned this recipe years ago from my dear friend Nanette, who's a fantastic cook. So in my mind, I always just think of them as Nanette's dilled beans. But I think the actual recipe name was Finest Dilled Beans. So maybe you've heard of it too. It's a really good way to use up part of your green beans to have a different kind of pickle instead of just the cucumbers like I usually make, or the squash, or a combination of those kind of things. So it's something a little bit different but really tasty. It's also a great recipe to use to make if you're not very experienced with canning. It's kind of one of the simpler ones when it comes to pickles because it's pretty straightforward, and there's a lot of pickles that I love to make. There's like you have to wait, and you have to do this, you have to do that, and let them sit, and this one's kind of really quick and easy. So it's a good one for people to start with if they don't have very much experience. So I'm going to go over the ingredients and kind of tell you how I've morphed the recipe over the years to fit what I have on hand, and then I'm going to show you how easy it is to put together. So you need to wash and trim to fit wide mouth pint jars the green beans. You need 3 pounds young green snap beans. Now, so those young ones that are kind of flat and uniform size, those work the best. My garden's never like that, and maybe they are in the beginning, but I never have it all together. So a lot of times my green beans that I use for this are different sizes. Some of them are the young, thinner ones that do the best, but those bigger beans are also good in this. I would try to stay away from the really big ones that are really full, because as the bean will kind of come apart on you, and then which would still be edible, it'd still be fine. But you do want to, it works better, especially if you want really pretty jars. It works better if you have those young green beans that are kind of uniform as far as their thickness and their size. But I typically don't have that. I just use what I have on hand. To go along with those green beans, and each pie kind of is how the recipe's laid out. And I will definitely link to the recipe in the description below so you can go over and kind of read it and peruse it for your own at your own pace. We're going to need garlic cloves to go in each jar. We're going to need a small whole red pepper. Cayennes are perfect size. Here's another thing. I never have the right peppers on hand. So I have cayennes out in the garden, but they're not ripe yet. And I looked this morning at the store and I could not find cayenne. And I've done this a lot of times, so I've just got a I don't even remember what the name of it is. It does have a little bit of heat to it, but it's not cayenne, but a red pepper, and I've cut them in strips, and I just do that. It gives flavor, but it also makes a really pretty contrast to the green. But if you have cayennes, definitely you could use those. And another thing, since I don't always, it seems like cayennes are hard for me to find, or hard for me to have them ripe at the right time that I'm making the pickles. So another thing you can do, which is not in the recipe, but you could add a little bit of red pepper flakes, and that's what I do, along with the sweeter, milder pepper. Then you're going to need either 1 teaspoon of dill seed or a sprig of fresh dill. So I had dill in the garden, so I've got my dill right here. So then we're going to add that to the jar, which I'll show you all that. And then you're going to, before you do that though, you need to boil what you're going to pour over it. So it's going to be 3 cups of distilled white vinegar, 3 cups of water, and 4 tablespoons of kosher salt or pickling salt. So I have all that sitting out here. I've got my water measured and my vinegar and my salt, and I'm going to go over to the stove, pour it all in, bring it to a boil, and then I'll show you how I put it all together in the jar. Now I've got my stuff coming to a boil over there, and I'm going to start showing you how to fill the jars. As always, I think of stuff I should have said after I do the first part of the video. So this is a recipe that we're going to water bath can. So I've already sterilized all my jars, and then on the stove right now I have my water bath canner with water in it coming to a boil, and I already have it heated up. In other words, it's already got water in it. And I also, what I do when I'm doing that is I'll use that water to sterilize my jars, so that's kind of saves you from having to do it 2 different ways. And also this, you saw or you heard how easy the brine is with the salt, the water, and the vinegar. So if you run out of brine, it's really easy to just whip up another batch as you're filling the jars. So now we're going to start. I'm going to put me a clove of garlic. This is one that I'm actually going to put some of those little red pepper flakes in. I've got me some of my dill. And there's really no right or wrong way to do this. The dill smells so wonderful and it's so pretty. But you just start layering your green beans in there. And I should have got me a knife there. I may have to trim this one. And you want them to fit in there pretty tightly. So, but if you don't have them very tight, it's still going to be okay. They'll just stand up in there. There's really just no right or wrong way to do this. What you would, theoretically, you want it to be full. You want it to be tight so they're not just swimming around in there. But if they do swim around, it's still going to taste good. You want more in there because you're putting up something, so you want to utilize the whole jar. So once you get them kind of down in there, you can begin to really squeeze in. And I can't forget my pepper. Got to put some of that. Really pretty. I might put another sprig of dill. And another thing, putting them really tight, if you can squeeze them in there, is that once you pour the liquid in them, it does, keeps them against the glass. Just thinking about the pretty factor, which doesn't, I'm not one that always thinks about that. I'm more the person that thinks about how good it tastes instead of how good it looks. I'm going to put another piece of garlic. I love to eat the garlic out of pickles like this too, once I open a jar of them. So you can see my green beans are short, some of them. So I'm just going to keep stacking them on the inside there. I might go down in there. Now, again, if you wanted them to be more uniform and kind of a prettier presentation, you would need those young, fresh ones, probably like that, kind of. But mine are, as you can see, mine are all different shapes. Can you grow them yourself? Different varieties, different. So that's what I'm going for. Okay, there's one jar. And I'm just going to continue. Put that over there. Give me some garlic cloves. Some of these bigger ones. I like to put the pepper up against the glass again just because it shows up pretty. And some more dill. I love the smell of dill. It's such a fresh, clean scent. Oh my goodness, it smells so lovely. That one's a little bit long. Cut them in half. It smells so good. So even before we actually do anything else to it, you can see just how pretty it is. Such pretty with the dill floating around and the peppers. So pretty. Such a pretty jar. Makes a pretty jar of pickles for sure. Put some more. And as you can see, I'm going heavy on the garlic because we like that. So you can slightly adjust it to your preferences. The original recipe did just call for one clove of garlic, but I love like I said, I like to eat the garlic as much as I like to eat the green beans. So another thing that I've found over the years that this works really well for is the same recipe, but instead of using the green beans, to use okra. So I'm going to do 1 jar here at least of pickled okra. So I'm going to put me a little bit of the pepper, and then I'm going to see if my okra, how you have to, okras, and I guess you could chop it up, but I like to leave them whole. I do try to trim the tops a little bit, but just to help them fit in the jar. You wouldn't need to trim them if you were using like a quart jar. But I'm going to make one. There's me 1 green bean. It was hiding. I need to fix it. Put it in there somewhere. So let's put some pepper. Give me some more dill. I'm going to put a little bit more garlic in all of them. I might put a little bit more dill. Okay, now we're ready to fill them up. I don't even know if I need that. So you can see them begin to float up. But I've found that that's okay. If you want to wipe off the top with something, you can. So it's going to be good. It's going to be pretty. So pretty. Whoops. I'm going to try to poke those down in there. I'm either going to have barely enough or almost, or have to make another. I think I'm going to have to make another run. So close. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do want to do 2 more jars, so I'm going to make me another, just so I have a full run in the canner. So I'm going to make some more brine and get me some more vegetables ready. That's the good thing about this time of the year is I'm not as likely to run out of something if I'm doing it, because I've got so much coming in from the garden. This time of the year, I feel like my counters are all covered constantly with either tomatoes. Not just my counters and my whole kitchen floor. I'm bad to put stuff in the floor and on the table. But it's a wonderful bounty to be able to grow your own stuff, like your dill and the garlic. And I didn't grow the pepper. Of course, I grew the green beans, but I had the pepper. I do have peppers growing outside. I just didn't have any ripe ones. Any red ripe ones. I have some that's green. I could have used those too, but the red is really pretty. There's something very peaceful about puttering around in your kitchen and putting up food for your family or cooking for your family. I don't know. Everyone doesn't find that peaceful, I know, because some people, everyone has different interests and different likes of what they like to do. But for me, being in my kitchen, whether I'm cooking or getting to put up nature's bounty, is certainly one of my happy places. I love to be in the garden too, though. I love to be outside and in the woods and those kind of things. But putting up food for my family is just gives me a real satisfaction. And I'm sure it's, for me, a lot of it is that's how, you know, I grew up with Granny doing it. And it is a wonderful thing to have those, whether you have, of course, you know, wonderful thing to have Granny and being that influence, but then, you know, there's people throughout my life, like Nanette, that has influenced me. And here, you know, when she first showed me how to make these, I'm sure she didn't think that, you know, well, Tipper's going to be making those for her family for the rest of her life, but really, that's what happened. So she definitely, you know, it's wonderful to come in contact with people like that influence you in the ways that make you happy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This is one of my happy places, but then along with it, it brings all those memories of people who've taught me stuff like Nanette. Okay, I think our stuff is boiling. Let's see if I can get it. So we need 2 more jars. Well, first I need to fill this one the rest of the way up. Woo! Spilled a little of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 2 more. So let's see what we can do. Not really happy with the. Matt will be happy that I'm using the pepper. Try not to put too much, but he loves pepper. Me, not so much. Oh, it smells so good with the dill and the vinegar. Oh. So now I'm going to move over to the water bath canner and put them in so that I can actually process them. So now we're going to let them process for 20 minutes. So I just got the jars out of the water bath. I've got them cooling here. When I'm canning, whether I'm making jelly, pickles, venison, deer meat, for canning it, once I get my jars out, I cover them with a towel to kind of hold all that heat in. But I wanted to show you how pretty the jars turned out. They're still really hot. But you can see if I move the towel there, you can see the pepper and see the green beans, see that the garlic, and you can probably don't show up on the camera, but I can see the dill. It's kind of floating around, really pretty. Now you can also see, like for this one, for example, how I didn't do a very good job really getting my beans in there tight, and they've kind of floated up to the top. You can do a better job on that than I did, but they still taste good, even if they float up to the top. As I said before, putting up food for my family brings me real joy. And over the years, I've tried all different kinds of, whether it's pickles or jellies or whatever, canning recipes. But it's especially meaningful, the ones that I make, that Granny taught me, that a friend taught me, that Miss Cindy taught me, like these that Nanette taught me so many years ago. As corny as it sounds, it's almost like when I make that recipe every year, it imparts part of them somehow. I mean, I feel them. I feel that joy of the friendship or the relationship. And so I really think that's somehow powerful. And maybe that even makes them taste better because they come from that, come from a place of friendship or a place of family if it was Granny or Miss Cindy. But I really love that. I love that. And I've made lots of different things, and a lot of the stuff I make come right out of a ball canning book or out of a recipe book that somebody that I don't really know, like community or church cookbooks where it has the person's name down at the bottom. But it's just especially meaningful when it's someone you know and then you use their recipe. I just love that. I just think it makes it all the more special. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make what I think of as Nanette's dilled beans, but finest dilled beans. And it is a great recipe to start on because it's kind of simple how it goes together. If you try it, I hope you'll like it. And as always, I hope you'll just keep dropping back by and help me celebrate Appalachia, which is a whole lot of putting up food.